Hello everyone, this is TracerPixel128, and what I have with us today is this EeePC 901. You probably remember when I covered this last October. This is our old netbook, and the reason why I have an external keyboard and mouse with it, well, is because the keyboard and trackpad on this thing just do not work anymore. I'll look into getting a replacement down the road, but for now, let's revisit it. I think I fully charged it last night. It's been a while since I last used this device. Got this back in 2009. Let's zoom into the thing. If I recall correctly, this is running Ubuntu 10.10 Maverick Meerkat, the very last version of Ubuntu Netbook Remix to ever be released. I have a thumb drive with an older version, so I'll probably try to install that to get to like the earliest version. And here is the laptop. Actually, let me try to increase the brightness. Here's like all the applications. Actually, let's go into About. No. It's been a while since I last played around with an old version of Ubuntu, so bear with me. I haven't done much of the system, so yeah. It's like all the stuff that's on here. Let's see. Where would it be under? It's been a while. It's like in a... Oh yeah, About... No, it's not About Me. Yeah, like I said, it's been a while. Yeah, just comes with all the standard applications. And what version of Firefox is this thing running? I'm not on Wi-Fi. Oh, yeah, of course, Ubuntu 10.10. Is running Firefox version 3.6.10. I remember that version of Firefox. Back when Firefox was still pretty good. I mean, it's still a decent browser, but yeah, I'm not connected to Wi-Fi or anything. I don't think the Wi-Fi would work. Let's see, newer Wi-Fi. Battery's still holding a charge. It's got 5 hours and 30 minutes left. Yeah. I remember this had an Intel Atom CPU, which was common on a lot of these netbooks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this thumb drive and try to install an older version. But first I'm going to reboot the system. And then boot into the BIOS using this keyboard. Correctly, I think, yeah, CF2 key. There we go. Let's change it so I can boot into the drive. And we'll take it from there. And now I'm going to try the live version. This is an older version of Ubuntu. I think... And it's booting up. I've always liked the older versions of Ubuntu, especially when it still used GNOME 2 and the early Unity releases. The earlier versions of Unity, and I'm probably in the minority who actually liked the Unity user interface. I mean, the Unity desktop environment, excuse me. Most people prefer KDE or GNOME 2, or even something like Cinnamon. Even though I'm used to vanilla Ubuntu, maybe I should try Mate. Something with the Mate desktop environment, which uses which is a fork of GNOME 2. Maybe I remember this screen. I vaguely remember it. Barely hear that over the sound of our AC, but oh yeah, judged by the wallpaper, it's Karmic Koala. Released in October 2009. Yeah. I'm going to install it. And the AC shuts off. I feel like I should do more of these installation videos on my channel since a lot of you guys seem to really enjoy them. Yeah, especially when one of my most popular videos is me installing macOS Catalina on my mid-2010 Mac Mini using DOS Dude 1's patcher. Yeah, forward. It's not a live CD, I'm using a thumb drive. However, I do have an old CD copy somewhere. Yeah, Eastern. Yeah, Eastern. That's the right time zone. I'm not connected to the internet, but I could disconnect the network cable from my HP Pro 3000, who I named Musumi, and I'll explain that in a future video as to why I named it that. You probably know already if you have seen my recent videos. Setting up the partitioner. This one time, back in 2015, I was trying to install Karmic on this thing, and there was an issue with the SSD, and I presumed it was dead or something, so I just shelved it for about 7 years, and then I brought it back out last year and ran a copy of D-Band on the SSD and wiped it. It took a long time for it to wipe, but I was able to save it. Yeah. Like, I'll just erase the entire disk. Yeah. This will erase Ubuntu 10.10 and install Ubuntu Netbook Remix 9.10. Specify partitions manually. Or, no, just erase and use the entire disk. That's probably what I'll do. This is a 4GB SSD, but I think that you can upgrade to a larger one, but it may require a BIOS upgrade, but that's a bit risky because I don't want to do that. Yeah. The first and only time I ever tried to do a BIOS upgrade was on a Dell Studio XPS laptop that had an Intel Centrino 2 processor and shipped with Windows 7 Home Premium, and then it refused to boot. Okay, so what is my name? I'll just Uzume. Now I'll just type in a password off camera. The name of this computer? Well, I'm gonna call it. Okay, I'm gonna name it something. I'll just call it the EeePC 901 because that's basically what it is. Yeah, I'll just log in automatically. Yeah, the installation for Linux distros just hasn't really changed much in years. Partition 1 is X4, partition 5 is swap. There we go. It's like loading really fast. Oh, well, it's because it's an SSD, an old SSD, but this was one of the first computers we ever got that had an SSD. All the other computers we had hard drives. Yeah, I did cover the installation process in the last video. Just be playing around with this netbook again and seeing that, hey, it still works, but I felt like running an older version of Ubuntu. If there are any other operating systems that I can run on this machine, let me know down in the comments. I could run like a different Linux distro. I could even try loading Windows on this thing, because some netbooks came with Windows XP. So I'll let you know when it's done after this clip. Okay, now I'm going to shut down, and let's see if it's complete. Oh, just all pop up. Didn't notice that. So after this shuts down, I'm going to disconnect the thumb drive. It's pretty warm. And then I'm going to turn it back on. taking a while to boot. Oh, there it goes. There's the cursor. I remember that from back in the day. That was the old startup sound. Anybody remember that? I most certainly do. There's like all the applications. It's pretty much the same stuff that all the other ones came with. Like user, system monitor, and all that. Pretty sure the newer versions of Ubuntu would come with similar stuff nowadays. Sound and video. It still comes with Rhythmbox as like an older version of it. And this was back when Ubuntu came with OpenOffice. Nowadays it comes with LibreOffice. I think they started including LibreOffice instead of OpenOffice.org. Starting with Natty Narwhal in 2011. That was version 11.04. Internet, you have, of course, Empathy, which is a messaging client. Evolution Mail. I think that's replaced with Mozilla Thunderbird. Transmission, Ubuntu 1, which that was a short-lived cloud service that Canonical had that they discontinued around 2014 or so. And the Firefox web browser, which of course Firefox is still present in every single Linux distro I've tried, except for Raspberry Pi OS, which comes with Chromium. Maybe I could put Raspberry Pi OS on this thing. It still supports 32-bit, because a lot of the Raspberry Pis are 32-bit. Like the Raspberry Pi Zero W, it's 32-bit. Graphics comes with FSpot, which is a basic photo editor, and OpenOffice.org drawing. Then for games, there's a lot of games on here, but nowadays it just comes with Solitaire. Accessories, calculator, character map, disk usage, analyzer, gedit. It's like all this stuff. Take screenshots, and the terminal, and Tomboy notes. And files and folders. It's just, all the folders for all your basic stuff. Documents, music, pictures, videos, the desktop, downloads. And favorites, it just shows like all the apps that are right here, all your applications. Cheese is a webcam client. Webcam application. I don't know why I said client. And I think the webcam works on this thing still. The Ubuntu Software Center, I think, was replaced with GNOME's application store ever since Canonical went back to GNOME. Not GNOME 2, GNOME 3, which is also known as GNOME Shell. GNOME 2, as I stated earlier, was it was forked to Mate. And it's taking a little while to open. And I see the webcam is it on? Hello? You can see me right there. Let me see what the about is. Version 2.28.1. Copyright 2007 to 2009. Take photos and videos with your webcam with fun graphical effects. And here's how it looks. It just looks so weird. It's taking a little while to load because this is an old computer. It's about 13, 14 years old. Got it back in 2009. It still works for what it is. It may experiment with other OSs in the future, but I just wanted to load an older version of Ubuntu because, well, I felt nostalgic. I think I'm just going to close out of that for now. And the picture finally loaded. Let's close out of that. So yeah, this is basically all it comes with. They don't come with nearly as many games as some of the newer versions do. I did play around with the latest LTS release, which I believe is Jammy Jellyfish, but it was because I had to... I have my camera right here. I had to boot into Ubuntu and open up gparted to convert the partition table on the hard drive that's in this thing from GPT to master boot record so I can load Windows, and it worked just fine. I had no problems with it whatsoever. And yeah, before anyone asks, I don't intend to switch to Linux as my main OS. I mean, if you use it, if any of my viewers are watching or using Linux, that's fine. I have no problems with people using whatever operating system works for them. Computers are like ice cream. Everyone has their own personal preferences. What I don't like is those who fight with others and try to force them to switch to something. I mean, let people switch on their own. Don't force people to get into something they may not be into. Don't force someone to like something, is what I'm saying. I mean, if you use I don't care if you use Windows, Mac, Linux, another version of Unix, or whatever. As long as it works for you, that's great. I mainly use Windows, but I occasionally like to play around with Linux and Mac OS, just to play around with. But that's just my personal preference when it comes to things. I mean, I don't care what operating system you use or what device you use it on, as long as it works for you. Don't be like certain people online where they try to force people to use something, or they insult someone for using something they don't like, or something like that. All I can say is it's just, you do you, just don't be like those people. Just continue using what you like to use. And if anyone has any recommendations for any other operating system I could load on this thing, I could load like a different Linux distro, or even like a version of Windows. Like I said earlier, there were some netbooks that came with Windows XP, but this netbook, when we got it, was bare bones. It had no OS on it, where you can load pretty much any operating system you want on it, basically. Which kind of helped pave the way for the Raspberry Pi, where it's meant to tinker with. However, some people have actually gotten use out of them and have even used them as their main computers, and if it's all you got, that's fine. That's what computers are meant to be used for. They're meant to be used as tools, to play around with and to tinker with too. I mean, it's part of my career and why I'm on YouTube, of course, but that's a story for another day. Anyways, I hope you all enjoy this video, and I have a big video coming up within the next few days or even the next week, so stay tuned for that. And feel free to leave a comment if you happen to have one, and any suggestions for future topics.